Okay, welcome back. So this is sort of take two of MPC Key 37. So we're going to sort of go through the good, the bad, and sort of the medium. But first of all, I do want to mention, and this really covers the whole MPC platform or paradigm in general. It's when I speak about the workflow, when I speak about anything really about these instruments, I do have to preface that uh, if you are not the if sampling is not your forte and that's something that you don't want to get involved in, you wouldn't really take advantage of what this platform really has to offer. And so you're just cutting yourself short, basically. And because I mean, I speak from experience. I've had the MPC X since its initial release in 2017, and it literally sat there like a doorstep for a long time. I mean, I sequenced with it, but you have to realize when you use this style of workflow or these hardware instruments and you use it in the way you would use like a DAW or older workstations where you MIDI'd a lot of gear to it, it just becomes a hassle that, and it just kind of comes along with it. So you have to MIDI your motifs, your tritons, and all that kind of stuff, and that has its own drawbacks and pros and cons, of course. And so, really getting the true benefit out of your MPC, and you can buy the expansions from the MPC store. You can buy and you can use these new plugins that they've introduced back in the 2.11 update. But in the end, there's a certain ubiquity of freedom that you can get creatively and from a hardware standpoint by making your own expansions. And they give you the tools when you download the software. You get the expansion builder. So you're talking about taking things like this. Okay. And to answer someone's question from a previous post, these are just demos of what the sounds sound like. They're actually quite very playable sounds. So if I go into here and I pick up fingers, now that's just a demo that I played in when I made these expansions. So if I were to go into here, we'll just go to track 4. These are playable. Okay, and so what ends up happening is as you start using and sourcing out your hardware, you start creating by default a custom library for the most part, and that custom library, such as the library that I have here, becomes sort of a reflection of an extension of sort of your creative mind and intention. So if you're doing hip hop, your library might actually be a lot different than my library. But the fact of the matter is, you can make this platform sort of your own extension of your own creativity. Now, having said that, one of the true benefits behind that is you can align all your MPC instruments, which is we're going to get into the Keys 37 in a minute. But all these different instruments, when you sample your own stuff, you can create your own libraries and you can put them in all your MPCs. And so your workflow and your sound palette becomes sort of ubiquitous within your studio. So what ends up happening is, as we get into the Key 37, the main point behind it is its form and its function of all these instruments that Akai makes. Because at some point, if you look at it like on a plotted graph paper, you'll find that the dots are going to be all different areas, because where the cross section of its form and its function form being this particular size in this case. It's going to sort of define its function within your studio. So to take advantage, truly to take advantage of that, you don't want to be dependent on dangling MIDI cords, authorizations and software, whether it's on your computer or not. You want to sort of free yourself from that so you can be as creative as possible. And so what made me finally turn the corner when making these expansions is that I tried some of the expansions on the MPC store and they just weren't my style. And so when I started doing my own, I mean, you get better and better at it, and eventually you get yourself a library going. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the form and function of the MPC, and I'm going to tell you what I like and don't like so far. So one of the major, we'll say, crummy things, and is that when I say crummy, I mean things that actually don't work or defects. So one of the defects I have here, which you might not be able to see on the video, but is some little scratches that were here, and they're basically hairline cracks in the plastique. Talked to a Kai about it, showed them the pictures, and they responded that that's within their acceptable tolerance of the manufacturing process. So that was a little bit disappointing. Another issue I'm having, and it may or may not be a Kai, is some issues when the MPC Key 37 is functioning as an audio card or audio device. And this is when run, of course, in control mode with the MPC software. So realize when you have issues like this, they can become multi-complex, because chances are you might have other software in your computer that might be conflicting, because USB is kind of a bag of hurt, if you will, when it comes to running operating systems, managing the power and resources. So now I normally use an RME audio interface for this particular computer that I'm running this with, but you still want this to be able to work. The Key 37 to function as an audio device. You still want that functionality. So I'm not sure. I had a level 2 technician actually call me, and we discussed all the benchmarks and what I did to validate my claim. And so we're back and forth, still trying to figure it out. Again, this is a new product. I think I said in a previous video, Sweetwater is a great place to buy stuff from because of the 2-year extended warranty, and you never know when you're going to need that support. Because after you buy this and your return policy ends, if you didn't purchase a extended warranty, that can be a problem. And you don't want to rely on a Kai always. Sometimes it helps to have that, like Sweetwater, for example, to be that middle arbitrary to sort of stand up for you, if you will. So I always suggest buying this from Sweetwater if you can. Okay, so let's just take a look. So those are sort of my super negatives. Now, as far as and a lot of people have commented about the not having a solid state and not having certain things. So for the price, we're looking at $8.99. This is new. So this is sort of somewhere between the One and the MPC Live. And so depending on who you are and how you're going to use it, there's many ways to look at this unit. Could potentially be a replacement for an MPC Live. If you were to take a Live and superimpose it on here, all right, it's not much bigger than an MPC Live, which means you could put this in a duffel bag on the plane, carry on. It can be done. Now, as far as not having the solid state, that is a bummer, but it's not really end game scenario with that. Having the SD card, in my situation, I just put all my sample packs on it, expansion packs on it, and just load them off of there. And you can swap them out when you run out of space pretty easily. So, not a big deal. And so the real killer feature for me, as you can see, I've got this in the studio, um, and I'm able to have this workstation in an area in the studio where I do a lot of my overdubs and editing on another computer, which is off to the side. So the 88 key keyboard and the MPC-X is where I do actually my composing and arranging. With the exception of having this, I've been testing it out, so I've been using this exclusively. But to be able to pick this up, take the power supply, and go where I need to go, is just a killer feature to have. And remember, the sample packs being inside of here, you don't have to worry about taking modules. Your whole studio is in here. Okay. So as far as the button layout and the compactness of this, if you examine your Live 1 and 2, or examine the MPC keys specifically, you're going to notice that the rubber pads have to be governed by a certain size because they're illuminated and they have the silkscreen writing on here. So if you look at favorites, you can see how the favorites extends beyond the button size. So if they used the rubber pads like they did on the MPC Key 61, you wouldn't be able to get the layout on here right because everything would be too big. The buttons would be too big. So these buttons are more like what you would see on the MPC-X, these hard color-coded buttons. And so all these buttons, like typical MPC layout, while the functions may vary depending on what buttons are in particular units, they often in common have a double press. So every button basically does pretty much two things. So main, right here, track, right, grid, step record. And then there are some buttons that have double function that aren't labeled. So for example, shift, play start, turns the metronome on and off. Now you've got a dedicated metronome button here, but as on the MPC-X, you do not have a dedicated metronome button because the metronome is on the screen control, Q-links. But there will be times on the MPC-X where screen control is not enabled, and you might want to turn that metronome off. So, for example, like in this screen here, I don't have access to the metronome on the front head of here, where the toolbar is. So the button is here. Okay, but because the MPC-X doesn't have a dedicated metronome button, you have to do it from here, like this. All right. Just like the retrospective recording when you hit shift and record. Or here's another one. Double tapping the bars, beats, and ticks brings up locate. Locate is a screen that you can actually, for the most part, live in, but it just requires you to access any other features outside that you might need to use these buttons. For example, if I go Okay, so if I had to, without leaving the screen, if I had to go to another sound without leaving the screen, I could go into here. And now I'm switched, but I never leave the screen. Okay, and so, and pretty much you can get to pretty much anything. Like if I had to go in here and outside of time correction, if I had to go edit something like this, and I had to get back out, instead, you could always hit main and go back in like this. So that would be one thing you could do. So far I don't know anything that doubles as, again, as the latch button, or I mean the locate button. So it's from the screen. Okay, so what I found after using this and getting used to the buttons, that when moving over to the MPC Key 61, I actually felt sort of like a lot of that space was wasted. I mean, like the exaggeration would be like, oh, I got to reach way over here to get to this, and have to reach way over this way to get to this. It felt a lot different, inefficient, if you will, and that's how the MPC Key 61 sort of feels. So, but as I talked to someone last night that's got an MPC Key 61, they go out, they gig, and use it and play from it, where maybe the Key 37 does not fit that function. Okay, so definitely the product line, while the software remains the same, so to speak, the product line varies, and the form and its function is really sort of an extension of its form, its morphology, its size. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, until next time, peace out.